Hey guys, welcome to another Star Wars The Old Republic free-to-play option ability guide. This one is for the Watchman spec for the Jedi Sentinel. Now the purpose of these guides is to help you as a free-to-play player to Star Wars The Old Republic to get the most out of your class and most effectively play the class and spec that you would like to play using only the 2 quick bars that you are given for free. It is possible, of course, to buy more for a small dollar cost, but if you don't want to do that and just want to play completely for free, this is how you can play this particular spec and class with only those quick bars, how you can fit everything in. So the Watchman spec of the Jedi Sentinel is the damage over time spec for Jedi Sentinels. It's very strong. And what you're going to want to do is, let's just jump right in and figure out how to do this. So the first thing to keep in mind is that when you first start the game as a Jedi Knight at level 1, you're going to have a number of different abilities on your quick bar, on your first quick bar. You're going to have strike and slash and Shi Cho form. You're going to have quick travel, and you're going to have introspection and force might. The first thing you should do is take quick travel off your bar. You don't need it. Quick travel is a skill which just lets you travel to waypoints which you have found across the world, and it's a very long cooldown. Very many people simply do not use quick travel on their quick bar. I don't use quick travel on my quick bar. It's fine to not have it. When you want to use it and travel somewhere, you just press P, it brings up the catalog of abilities you have, and you use it from there. It's totally fine. The other thing you should do is take Force Might off. This is a little bit annoying, but it's really about the most annoying thing you're going to run into as far as this particular spec and class goes. Force Might is your buff. Every class has a buff which lasts 60 minutes or until death, and which provides a certain statistical bonus to that class and to anyone else in the area when the buff is used. It will take up a slot on your quick bar. Eventually you might find that you prefer it in place of something else, and you might be able to put it on one of your quick bars in place of something else. However, it is really a situation where we're trying to preserve as many of these slots as possible, and this lasts 60 minutes, or again until death. So if you just take this off, and you can access it again by just pressing P and just going to the basic catalog of all your abilities, then you only need to do that once every 60 minutes when it runs out, or if you are unfortunate enough to die, but hopefully you won't. So it's a slight annoyance, but not that big a deal. Now, what about the rest of your abilities? How are you going to fit all of these different crazy abilities onto only 24 slots? And in fact, there's 2 pages of them. Well, what you're going to do is this. I want you, as you go through the game leveling, to train every single ability that you come across. Everyone that's offered to you, train it. I'll give you a few that you should not train, but for the most part, just train every single one. And what I'm going to do is tell you which ones you should take off your bar when it turns out you need more space. So you just keep training your abilities as you level up, and eventually you'll have 24 abilities, and then you'll have a 25th one that you need. And what you should do then is take one of the ones which I have told you you don't need, and you can take it off the bar. Okay? And by this time, you'll probably even realize you don't need it because of the fact that you're not actually using it. So, for Watchmen, one of the first abilities you're going to take off your bar is SWtOR form. Now there's 3 different lightsaber forms. They kind of change the way that your character works slightly. And for Watchman, you don't want this one. You're going to want a different one, which you will get later. Until you get it, you can just leave this one on. It's fine. But eventually, when you need space, you can pull this off the quick bar, and it's completely fine. The next one that you should pull off is Riposte. Riposte is this kind of funky ability. It's a little bit unique in the game. It is mainly an ability which is used by the tank tree for the Jedi Guardian. I guess there's some use for a Jedi Sentinel and for other Guardian specs, but really quite minimal. It's not something that you really need to be spending a quick slot bar on at all. I don't know that very many Jedi Sentinels are using Riposte for anything, so you can pull that one off as soon as possible. Next, what's going to happen is you're eventually going to get SWtOR form at level 14. Is a Watchman Sentinel. This is the form you want to always be in. However, you don't need this skill to be on your bar. It's a toggle. It's set it and forget it. So all you need to do is when you first get it, activate it, then you can pull it off your bar and never think of it again. If for some reason it gets turned off, and you can always press P and go back to that ability catalog, and there it will be, and you can turn it back on, and that's all you need to do. The same thing with Sprint. At level 15, you get Sprint. It lets you move more quickly out of combat. You do not need to have it on your bar. It will be perfectly safe in your little menu that you get by pressing P in case it gets turned off, but when you get it, just turn it on, and then don't worry about it anymore. The Heroic Moment is an ability you should probably take off your bar. Every class has one ability which is called Heroic Moment, which is basically an escape ability. It's something that gives you a lot of survivability in the case of an emergency. It's what you use when you are you've bit off more than you can chew. But the thing is, most players who have full quick bars very rarely use this anyways, and the cooldown is 20 minutes. It's not something you're using all the time. Most people just use it if they run into a boss that they just have a real hard time with. He kills them once or twice, and so they think, okay, next time I'll use Heroic Moment, and this will make it much easier. That's what I would suggest you do. Just keep it off your bar. If you run into a situation where you just can't beat this one fight, well, alright, go ahead and next time you go in there to do that fight, put that on your bar just for that one fight. And then when you're done, you can take it off again. And that will be perfectly fine. Finally, Cyclone Slash is another ability that if you run out of space for other abilities you're trying to get after this, you can get rid of Cyclone Slash. It's an AoE ability, which is kind of useful, but the thing is you already have Force Sweep, which is another AoE ability, which you're going to be using more often anyway. Cyclone Slash is kind of this funky ability. It's not one that's that important. You can take that off without very much concern at all for without very much concern at all for having given it up. I will ask you, or tell you rather, that Pommel Strike and Opportune Strike are 2 abilities you should just not even train. Every class has at least one. Jedi Knight has 2. The Smuggler also has 2. Of these abilities which are useful only against weak, standard, and strong enemies, and which require the target to be stunned. I don't train them on any of my characters. I believe that a lot of other people don't either. The main reason being they don't work against elite and champion enemies, which is really what you would want like this kind of strong attack for, which is what they are. But for these everyday mobs, they're kind of useless. They have long cooldowns, relatively long cooldowns, and they're just not. They're not worth having. It's not worth the cost of the money even to train them. The other abilities that you're gonna have anyways and be using anyways are better. So don't even worry about these two abilities. You do not need them. Lastly, inspiration. When you get inspiration, you probably shouldn't even put it on your quick bar, in all honesty, unless you decide that you like it. Jedi Sentinels have this mechanic called centering. And over time, as you use your skills and as you defeat enemies, you build up stacks of centering. And when you reach 30, you can spend those 30 stacks on any one of 3 special abilities. There's one called Zen, there's one called Transcendence, and there's one called Inspiration. Zen and Transcendence are the 2 you're going to use the most. Transcendence makes you move extremely quickly for a period of time, and Zen, depending on which form you're in, gives you particular benefits. Inspiration is this kind of team buffing one, which sometimes people use in very coordinated PvP or very coordinated endgame operations and things like that. But for you just leveling and even doing flashpoints and things, it's not one that you're really ever going to use. So you don't need this ability. You don't have to train it. If you do train it, well, that's fine, but you don't really need it on the quick slot bar. You know, you can try it out maybe. Finally, what I'm going to tell you is that one of the original abilities that you had from the beginning of the game, Slash, you're actually going to at some point trade this. Because when you reach level 40 as a Watchman Sentinel, you're going to get another ability called Merciless Slash. And Merciless Slash replaces Slash. So when you reach level 40, one of the ways you're going to preserve a quick slot bar is by taking Slash off and putting Merciless Slash on. They're basically the same thing, but they are... Merciless Slash has additional effects, which Slash does not. And so that's really the way that works. Okay. With that having been said, let me just point out one more thing. You may find as you go through that there's some other abilities which you would really like to put on, but you don't have room. For example, you're probably going to want to put a key on for your mount, your speeder, because it's kind of annoying to have to go into your menu every time that you finish a fight to load up your speeder, right? Nobody wants to do that. So let's say that happens and that you have something else you want to put in, or a med pack or whatever. Well, here's what you can do. You can actually potentially, you'd have to think about it. By this time you'll know what these skills do. Blade Storm is an ability as a Watchman Sentinel you could probably do without. Blade Storm is not intrinsic or not intricately linked to the Watchman spec. It's cool to have. It's slightly longer range than most of your abilities, so it is useful for some things. But in a pinch, if you really needed another slot, you could get rid of that one. Other ones that in a pinch you could really get rid of might be Disable Droid, which is a CC that is usable only on droids. It's really useful. However, as a Sentinel, you do not have a CC, a crowd control that is a stun, right, to use on biological enemies. So you're going to have plenty of times where you're just going to have to deal with all the biological enemies being conscious and awake and fighting you. So if you can do that, well, you can deal with the droids being also conscious and able to fight you as well. So you could potentially remove that one in a pinch. Lastly, you do have a number of different defensive cooldowns as a Sentinel. Rebuke, Pacify, Guarded by the Force, which is an incredible one, Saber Ward. You could, in an extreme pinch, consider giving up one of these defensive abilities because you have so many of them. But at the same time, the Sentinel is kind of heavily dependent on making sure to use these at the right time to survive. So you'd have to really have the experience at that point to kind of say to yourself, I feel comfortable with this. And by the time you're in a position where you're making that decision, you probably would have that experience anyway. So let's move on and just quickly run through the spec the build that you're going to use as a Watchman Sentinel. This is not necessarily the best build in the world or the only way to do a Watchman build. This is just a simple one which I put together trying to keep in mind that you're a free-to-play player who only has 2 quick slot bars. But generally speaking, it's not that different, if at all, from what you would make as somebody with more quick slot bars. So at level 10, when you get your very first skill point, you're going to put that into focus slash. And at 11, you put it into focus slash again. And at 12, again, so it's full at 3, right? Next, you'll fill up Valor. See, so 13 and 14 is Valor. And now, you're on level 14, you're going to start to put points into Joyo Mastery, which improves your Joyo form, which you just trained at level 14. Moving forward, once you hit level 18, you'll put in Merciless Zeal. And then finally, when you hit level 20, Overload Saber. Overload Saber is an ability which goes on your quick slot bar. It is an ability which, like I said, it goes on the bar. So this is one which you have to have. It is intrinsic, it is necessary, rather, to the spec that you're playing. So you really need to choose that. Next, you're going to put Searing Saber, fill that up. And then Blurred Speed, fill that up. Then Focused Leap, which is going to give you more focus, which is your resource that you need to spend. After Focused Leap, Repelling Blows, Close Quarters. And then moving up, Mind Seer, fill that up. Do Force Fade, do Burning Focus, and then Plasma Blades, and finally Merciless Slash. And remember, at this point, you are going to be replacing Slash with Merciless Slash. Moving forward, at level 41 now, what you're going to do is you're going to put a point into Dual Wield Mastery, fill that up as we move up to level 43. In level 44, you want Defensive Forms, which is really good. This is going to help you to survive longer, which is especially helpful as a free-to-play player who doesn't have the same luxury of being able to resurrect as easily at the same place that you died all the time. Next, put 3 points into Insight, and finally come over here and go up to Defensive Roll. And there it is. That's a build. Like I said, some people might do something a little different, especially with some of these other final points I put on. But that's fine. By the time you're up at that point, you'll understand these things a lot better, and you'll be able to make one of these decisions for yourself if you really think something else would be better. The point here is that this is just an overall idea of how you want to put your points as you go up as a free-to-play player trying to reach level 50. So I hope that this works out for you. And if you are interested in looking at the text version of it, there is a link at the bottom of in the text box below the video to that. And also keep in mind that there are videos for all of the other specs of each of the other classes. So take a look for those. Have fun, guys.